I have to say, this afternoon's set of presentations are as stimulating as this morning. And I'm sure most of you will want to share what we had to say over these 6 hours with friends and relatives, or challenge friends and relatives who don't believe. Tell them to look at what we had to say, the science, the practicality. Tell them to come to the right conclusion soon, because we can't delay. So anyway, what kind of thoughts do you have there, Heather, that the people would like to know a little bit more about?
Well, I'm just hearing over and over again that people just think it's unrealistic to think that the entire world's going to become vegan. It's just like they can't see it. They just can't comprehend it. Is it really realistic to think humans will voluntarily reduce animal consumption to the levels we need? It sounds like a War Measures Act is required to ration animal products. Is this plausible? So people don't want to give up their meat and dairy.
Well, too bad. Too bad. I've got 7 grandchildren. I think Dr. Ripple told us that he had 4 or 5 grandkids, and Dr. Bishop, he's got grandkids also. And to think about the fact that what we're talking about is ending their lives. They can't do this. Those who know have the ability to act, and it's our obligation to take action. So yeah, I'm going to move them out of the way the best I can. And if it requires drastic measures such as war, oh boy, I hate to talk in those terms. It shouldn't come to that. But considering what's at stake, and that's my family, I'm willing to do almost anything. So yeah, we're going to change. As I mentioned before, we're going to change whether we want to or not. And several other speakers have addressed this fact too. Is we're going to become vegans, whether we like it or not. We can either do it on our own terms, or on the fact that we're going to not have any food available for people, and certainly no animal products to eat, which is a luxury. So changes are near. It's going to happen. As I explained to you, just in my lifetime, I have seen people change some very serious habits. Smoking went from half the population to fewer than 17% of the people worldwide smoke. Alcohol consumption, people don't go for a noontime luncheon meeting anymore and get drunk. It's a social disgrace. And we can likewise make the same type of association with the foods. Not only is it a social disgrace to eat these animal products, and it is disgusting. Any of you who have adopted a healthy diet yourself, you're looking over at people, and I'm sure the first thing you say is, I know why you're sick. I know why you're overweight. You don't understand how good the food is we eat and how difficult it would be for me to change back to that meat-centered diet. Unsatisfying, poor taste. Remember that people get their taste from salt, sugar, and spice that you dump over the chicken or the pork or the beef, because it is so unappealing. We just have to make people aware. Any thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'd love.
Are we going to win?
Yeah, I think just that you look at human history, throughout all human history, slavery existed. And then in a very short period of time, slavery by and large has been abolished around the world. And now you would say to somebody 400 or 500 years ago and say, oh, well, so one day people are going to be against slavery. People would say that's ridiculous. Slavery is around the world. This is part of our culture. This is part of our income. This is part of our industry. This is everything. Our whole society functions around human slavery. And yet we evolved as a global society. So getting away from eating animals is a less extreme thing than abolishing human slavery. And granted, human slavery still exists in some forms around the world. And so we might not see a 100% vegan world, but can we get to a 70, 80% human population that eats predominantly plants? Yeah. And as you said, that's really the only way we are going to continue as a species.
Well, we have this opportunity. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me follow up on Keegan. It's a good point about the slavery. And I think for me, looking into the future, I have a similar view as you. And right now, look at society's view on white supremacy in general. And but the way we're treating animals, we are currently in a state of human supremacy. And I think future generations will look back at us and say, wow, back in the 19th, 20th, 21st century, there was a lot of very immoral behavior. So I think you have a good point that there's a tremendous room for change here, and I think it can happen.
And there's no reason not to. There's every reason to do it. We just have to make the other people aware. Other thoughts, other questions, Heather?
Let's see. I'm getting lots of thank yous from everyone about what a great day this has been. And, you know, someone did have some concern that, you know, we're just preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, we are.
How do we get the word out? How do we let the world know this?
Actually, can I address that one?
Please.
Yeah, we had a number of workshops in our community zero emissions Byron program, and we had a number of talks by some really top level sociologists, and they're talking about how social change happens. And my attitude was the same. Are we preaching to the choir? These people believe what I believe, so what's the point? But the thing is that in any social movement, it always starts with preaching to the choir. You must gather around like-minded people. You don't start at the hard end, the hard nuts who will never crack. You don't talk to those people. You just preach to the choir. And eventually, and in this case, we're arming the choir with the information that they can talk to other people in their day-to-day meetings. But that's how it starts, and it starts slowly, and it builds to a point where you're still on the outer, and there's a lot of resistance and aggression, and so on. But then it's normal, and then at the end, if you're not with the movement, you're on the outer. So this is, as all movements, we've got to preach to the choir initially.
I like to think of it as inspiring the choir.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, you know, it took me a long time to understand how important food was in terms of human health. But once you learn the truth, you can't do otherwise. I mean, I couldn't go back and practice medicine where I ignored diet, and I just treated people with a bunch of drugs and devices and gave them a bunch of excuses because they never get well. So, you know, there are lots of opportunities out there.
So a question, who's most likely to change and go vegan? Is it the Gen Zs? Is it the younger people? Is it, you know, people my age? Who's gonna really make this change and start this movement?
Well, if Greta Thunberg has the kind of influence that I've seen her have, it's going to start with the youth. And, you know, we who are in a comfortable situation, we say, you know, things are going to be harder for me. I may not be able to spend as much money and live in so much comfort. But the youth, they see that their future depends upon the older people making change. We have the same thing with COVID-19. The youth don't really care about COVID-19 by and large because they're not going to get sick. So they say, why don't you take the trouble to do social distancing? You know, it's us old people that have high risk for serious infections and dying from this disease. We both have complementary causes that we need to deal with, regardless of what our age. Everybody has to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, when we released Cowspiracy, which is environmentally focused, we released a 30-day vegan challenge, and you could sign up for free, and we could look at the demographics, and it was predominantly young people. And then when we released What the Health, which is a diet-focused or health-focused film, did the same thing, and 40,000 people signed up for it in a week, and it was predominantly people over the age of 40. And so I think it's the audience, you know, that a younger audience might go vegan for the environment, an older audience might go vegan for their health, an audience across the world might go vegan for ethics. And so I think that's the beauty of this plant-based diet and this plant-based movement, is that it can appeal to whatever someone is into. You know, I kind of feel like people are grouped into 5 things. You're either into animals, you're into human issues, you're into the environment, you're into health, or you're into spirituality. And veganism covers all of those. There is a logical argument to be made on behalf of all 5 of those things. And so it's just figuring out what audience is that you're speaking to.
And the great
and
thing,
speak up.
it doesn't really matter why you're doing it, right? Just that you're doing it.
It has the same end goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. I've been vegan for 30 years, and the argument I hear most often from friends is they can't give up cheese. Any helps for helping people overcome their addiction to cheese?
Well, I give a whole lecture on dairy products, which you're welcome to look at. I gave it the first time in 2003. I still give the same lecture. It's called Marketing Milk and Disease. If people look at the block of cheese on their plate as an infected piece of food, infected with leukemia viruses and other cancer-causing viruses, if they really seriously look at that cheese and they see the fact that you're eating something that 70% has no dietary fiber, is loaded with environmental pollutants, they're going to think twice about it. And when you realize that the reason people eat dairy products is because of the added sugar and salt. When I was a resident in my internal medicine residency in Honolulu, one of my jobs as a nephrology resident, taking care of kidney patients, was to convince my patients to eat saltless butter and saltless cheese. I'd come in the next day and they would say, "Doc, I can't do this. This tastes like a glob of grease." So we have to deal with real taste preferences of what the human being really enjoys. There's, I suppose, people like the salt. They like the simple sugars. But the animal products are what are killing us and the planet.
And that's another question. What if we just stop eating cows, can we keep drinking milk? Is that not going to have as bad of an effect on the planet? But they're still farmed animals, right? Just as much waste, just as much deforestation. Right. So, lots of people say, well, I don't eat meat, so I'm making a difference. And they may be, but we're really talking about giving up all animal products.
Yeah, that makes this simple. It's like black and white. When I get people to change habits, I'll have to tell you that the most effective means to change is have clear recommendations. I have never met a cigarette smoker who has quit smoking by cutting down, ever, in all my career. Same thing with an alcoholic. They don't stop falling down until they give up all the booze. Any of you who have problems with alcohol, you know what I'm saying. So it's much easier for people to make definitive changes. Green and red, yes and no. And then you can identify what you're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, you're getting confused. I look in the refrigerator and there's skinned chicken. There's isn't in my refrigerator, but it's just too tempting. So moderation is going to put unhealthy foods, unhealthy opportunities in your life. Just get them out of there. Again, a real addict understands that 100% do than 70%. In fact, moderation is impossible. It kills.
And speaking of the addiction, that's often when people say I can't give up cheese, I bring up the casomorphine, the fact that eating cheese can actually stimulate the dopamine responses in the brain. And so it has an addictive response, like an opiate response. And so when I explain that people are literally addicted to cheese and that they're actually an addict, it changes their perspective on it. It's like, oh, I don't have a choice in this. Like, you've been captured by this addiction to cheese, but the reality is you don't like cheese. Your body doesn't like cheese. You have indigestion from cheese. You're lactose intolerant, but you're addicted to this opiate. And that a lot of times will get people to go, right, yeah, I don't want to be an addict. Who wants to give up control? But again, I think it's finding where people are at. What are they really excited about? Maybe they don't care about their health. They're young and they say, I don't care. And so maybe it's the animal ethics. Maybe it's the environment that you can get them into questioning eating cheese.
All right. Let's see. I don't see any other questions coming in, but lots of thank yous. Amazing event. Okay. Here we got one. Can we speak to socioeconomic issues? For example, food deserts and cheap animal products that take the dietary controls away from people.
If I could jump in on this, I'm directing and producing a film called "They're Trying to Kill Us" about that very issue, about the health disparities between Americans of color and European Americans, and because of food deserts and food policies, and that there's very much a food system in the United States in particular that was designed to prey on impoverished communities and predominantly communities of color. And so there are incredible people and incredible organizations that are doing things to solve those issues of food deserts. which is obviously a larger, bigger picture. But I think the first thing is getting people to understand that this is a system that has been designed. It's not just happenstance that people ended up living in communities that don't have grocery stores or aren't even allowed to have grocery stores. So if you're interested in checking that out, the film's called They're Trying to Kill Us. Find it on theretryingtokilluscom.
Great. Is it out already, or?
No, we hope to have it out in the next couple of months, but you can sign up for our newsletter there and keep up to date and see the trailer and find out about the subject.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, any parting words that you'd like to each of you leave us with, messages of hope, things that we can do. I want people to feel inspired and motivated after today, that they can make a difference.
Yeah, I think today was excellent, and I would encourage everyone to talk to friends and family and acquaintances, and do it at the grassroots level, and also talk to politicians, because we're talking about putting a tax on carbon fees. Well, like I said in my presentation, it's time to be taxing meat and dairy products. And so we can talk to politicians, friends, family, and it can be a real positive thing, because we know of all the co-benefits. We've repeated it over the course of the day. So I'm encouraged, and it's really great to see the McDougalls taking the lead here and bringing us all together today. I really thank you for your efforts.
Well, we certainly need all of your help. This is not something that can be solved by one family or one person. But what I'd like to say is that these are times of change. The world is changing drastically, in fact, almost at a scary rate. When we come out of our most terrible times, we want to have good leaders. And we have that opportunity to lead us into a better world. But we have to stand up. We have to make people aware that we are a power to reckon with. We know, and we have goals that everybody should agree with. Change is coming, folks. Let's lead people into the right direction.
I like that. All right, Gerard and Keegan, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Thank you so much for this afternoon. It's been very stimulating, and it's been great hearing the other speakers, Keegan and William. Brilliant stuff. I missed this morning. Unfortunately, it was middle of the night for me, but I'll catch up on video later, hopefully. But look, this is so, and it's so encouraging to talk. And I for one am coming out of the closet. I'm talking to a few politicians next month. They're environmental groups. But that's what we've all got to do. We all need to talk to whoever we bump into, that these things are happening and what's really causing it, and how we can help. So yeah, bravo everyone who's here, because particularly those people who do talk. I mean, I've been in a corner writing for years now, but it's so good to meet people who actually go out and spread the word, and that's every one of us. So thank you all.
Yeah, I'd like to just say the same. I'm so honored to be invited to be part of this. I'm so grateful for all of you for the research and the work that you're doing, for McDougall family for using the platform that you have to talk about this broader issue of climate health. And again, just grateful for everybody who is using their voice and speaking up.
All right. Well, that's a good note to leave on. We certainly have enjoyed bringing this presentation to people. I mean, the greatest reward in life is helping other folks. And here we have an opportunity to help 7 billion people who are on the verge of some very serious problems. So, we'll emerge out of this with a lot of rewards, and the very least being the fact that we made a difference. The world is worth saving, no doubt about it. And we discussed the tools on how to save the planet. It's the food. Yeah, it's the food. So thank you very much. Heather, let's just close this up here. And
I just want to thank you all. And, I think this is so great because now we know we're not alone. There's a whole bunch of us out here that are talking about this, and we hope to do these often. Our next event is January 30th. we'll be sending out information about that, but we want to keep this conversation going. So I appreciate you all being here today and spending your day with us, and all of our viewers. Thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned for more information. Thank you all. I'm gonna close with a powerful video.
Okay, but let me say a couple of things here, Heather, before you do close. This event was supported by the McDougall Research and Education Foundation. And, you know, you have a little extra money dedicated to a cause that's really trying to make a difference, and that is to save the planet. As far as your involvement, Heather, I want to tell you about an experience I had with my father. In the early 1980s, all the way through the mid-1990s, I supported our family by selling books. I would go across the country. I'd be in a city every day on TV and radio shows trying to explain to people that they're sick for a reason. And I got a tremendous amount of reward from doing that, but I also got a tremendous amount of frustration. I remember one evening I came back from the Larry King show, and I was played as the best of Larry King. And I told my dad, I said, I'm so frustrated. You know, I seem to be talking to millions of people and nobody's listening. And he said to me, and I'm going to say to you, Heather, you have no idea of the impact you're making. Well, now 40 years later, I have an idea. And I want you to realize that you're making a huge difference, and all the other people are also. It may not seem like it. It may seem like we're, kind of talking to the breeze, but we're changing the planet, and we just have to keep this movement moving forward and keep our focus, tell the truth, not in any way compromise, because everything is about saving the planet. As that young doctor told me, how can I practice medicine on a dead planet? How can you do anything on a dead planet? So I hope we've invigorated a lot of people to go out and spread the word and realize that you're making a huge difference. You may not see it now. And you did a nice job, Heather, I have to say. You know, you're being an engineer and running this kind of program is a big deal. I know you took a lot of trouble to make sure everything went well, and it went wonderfully. And I also appreciate your enthusiasm, your excitement. And I think that when we first started this project, you were a little bit concerned that you weren't going to really enjoy yourself, and it was going to be a lot of hard work and a lot of burden. But you know, just the interaction that you and I've had, and the speakers have had with you, tells us that you're fully involved in this movement. We're going to take a leadership role about one thing, and that's diet. Food, it's the food. And we can save the planet, we can save the population. Play your video, Heather.
Awesome. Thank you all. It's been a wonderful day.
Now, the most beautiful word ever written in any country, in any language, at any time in human history came from India, from the Upanishads 3,000 years ago. Ahimsa. Non-violence to any living being. And it's a beautiful word, not because it describes our nationality, our politics, our religions, our diet, or our lifestyle, but because it describes our character. It says we reject violence wherever and whenever it occurs. It is a revolutionary event more powerful than the Industrial Revolution, the Reformation, the Hubble telescope, or anything ever conceived by Galileo, Copernicus, Einstein, Darwin, or Freud. Because it protects the most precious of all things, life.